Go. All right. Welcome, Ironheart students, to this edition of Ben and Luke Do Stuff. We're having a hangout right now. This screen is my screen. This screen is Luke's screen. So we're going to be switching between me doing stuff and Luke doing stuff, and you're going to love it. All right, first step. We have to make a new repository. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to call it Ben and Luke 5 Ever. Okay, I'm going to give it a description of whatever we want. That's what we're going to put in there. We're going to add a README. We're going to create the repository. So what the purpose of today's video is actually to demonstrate how to build kind of a login mechanism with a shared URL between the front end and the back end, kind of make a repository such that Luke and I, as front end and back end, can work together. So a lot of the technical restrictions you're going to come up against very shortly when you build your final projects are going to be solved by having the same domain. So far we've had different domains for the front end and back end, and that's not going to cut the butter anymore. It's not going to cut the it's not going to do it,
as they say.
Right? Some phrase like that. Okay, so first step, I'm going to clone this repository that I just created in GitHub. So git clone Ben and Luke 5 Ever repository. So at this point, I want to make a Spring Boot project. I'm going to use the command prompt to do that. So spring init --d pend ncs equals web dev tools. I'm not going to use JPA, Mustache, or Postgres right now. I will include Mustache just because. And then I'm going to install it to Ben. Oh, I'm going to do -- or build equals Gradle. By the way, spell build with an E is the old English way of spelling it. Just kidding. Okay, so Ben and Luke 5 Ever is the place I want to store it. So I hit enter, and it thinks for a while. Forgive the slowness of my laptop because it's not very good at recording screens, apparently. So if I do git status, I see that all this stuff has been added. So I'm going to do git add git commit -m, adding Spring Boot things. And I'm going to push those changes to GitHub. Okay, so here we go. Refresh the page in GitHub, and you see, indeed, we have Spring Boot things. Now, I want to be able to push to this, and what is this topics thing, Luke? That's a new thing.
Brand new. They released it last week. Yeah.
I don't know what that's all about. We'll talk about that later. I want to be able to push code to this repository, and I also want Luke to be able to push code to this repository so that if he changes the front end, he can do so without having his own fork and then submitting a pull request. That's not a very efficient way to do things. So we'll go here to collaborators, and then we'll go to here. I'm going to search for Anywees because that's his username. I'm going to copy this here and then paste you there.
Josh.
I had to open because I thought that I invited the wrong person to a channel because I saw all this hair.
I could see why you thought that wasn't me.
Right. Anyway.
Before I cut my hair.
All right, so I just copied the link. So he's going to refresh the page. Yeah, he already accepted the invite, so now he's there. So now both Luke and I have push access to this repository. Okay, he's a collaborator of mine. So the idea is he's going to put all of his front-end code here side by side with all my Spring stuff. So I'm going to go here back to IntelliJ, and I'm going to import this project like we've done so many times before. I'm going to import Ben and Luke 5 Ever. It's a Gradle project. This is way faster than before when I've tried to use OBS before in the past. And I am definitely recording, so interesting.
Oh man, that would be legendary.
Fun. It'd be fun. It would be fun. It would be fun.
It would be fun, yeah. All great films have required many takes.
Yeah. And this is just the first take.
Good point. Yes,
Right.
only the first.
Right. This is the only time we've done this.
Near certain to be the last, I'm sure.
Right.
And so instead of front-end team, I think we've done some of this collaborators configuration stuff when you've worked on other projects with front-enders. But the idea here is that that's going to allow us to all share one repository instead of splitting our code off into multiple repositories. And the big benefit of that is we'll be able to do what the backend team has been doing, which is pushing code to Heroku. And we'll push the Java backend as well as all of the front-end assets together instead of like pushing our front-end stuff up to Surge somewhere and then them pushing their stuff up to Heroku somewhere. We're going to push it all to the right place, or the same place, I should say. And the benefits of that, like Ben said, is we're all going to be at a single domain, meaning that things like geolocation and logins and those sorts of things that a lot of you guys are working on are going to be a lot easier to pull off.
Okay, so while Luke was jabbering,
Gosh.
I was doing this stuff. So what I want to do is prove to you that this works. So I'm going to make a mapping for the home page and be home, and then be like return home. Actually, I want to not even bother rendering a template. I'm going to do redirect to logged in.html. No, wait, not logged in. That makes more sense. So by default, you're not logged in. Okay. So what this is going to do is force the browser to navigate to this URL. Now, we're not going to be mapping this URL inside Spring. We're going to have, this is actually a file that's going to exist in our static directory. So this is going to live here. So I want to have a not logged in HTML file here. So I'm going to say you are not logged in, sir or madam. Okay, you need to log in before things. Okay, so sawed off, right? Essentially. So now we've done this. This is a basic server. What I'm going to do now is actually run this server with a command. So front-end team, this is how you're going to be running the server to do your work. So we'll do /gradlew here, and then just
Boot run?
Yeah, boot run. That's the thing we talked about before. So the task you're going to run is boot run. So this is going to compile your code and run it. So you're going to have the Java JDK installed in order for this to run properly. We should have installed it during the install party a long time ago, but if not, you can download
Super easy.
Right. As long as you're running OS X, which you definitely are, this should not be a problem. You just download the DMG from Oracle and install it.
So what's happening right now, by the way, in that command Ben just ran, are going to be in place of serve, which we've been running in the past. And serve is a very basic web server that basically just serves files that already exist. But you can't add a whole bunch of logic to it, like validating logins and these kinds of things. So this is going to be a replacement for that. We won't need to run serve, and instead we'll run that gradlew boot run command that Ben just showed us in place of that.
Yep. Okay, so when you see this line here, start a demo application, you might rename it, but basically it says it started, and that's what you need to see. So we'll go here to localhost 8080, and we'll see that we are indeed redirected to /notloggedin.html. So what we're going to do is backend team. We need to add a form when it logs you in. So in notloggedin.html, we're going to have a form element. So the form method equals post, and then the action is /login. And then I'm just going to have one field, and type equals text, name equals username. Okay, and I'm going to have a input type equals submit as well. Okay. Now, Luke, your team really hasn't used input forms before, right?
Yeah, we haven't really talked about the form element. It's going to be very similar to text boxes, but it's going to generate a post request when you click the button, and you can send all this information over. So a username and password, or email and password, or whatever. You can either use that input type submit button like Ben just showed us, or you can also just generate a post request yourself using Angular or vanilla JavaScript. One way or another, though, what you want to do is you want to generate a post request from a form, and then they're going to be able to use that information on the back end to check the password, make sure the username exists, and importantly, create a session, which is what Ben's going to do now. And sessions are going to be so you'll log in one time, quick for the front end. You'll log in one time, and then basically all these requests that are going to be coming later, you need to know that it's the same person who logged in, because you're not going to be sending your password over every single time. So instead of that, you're going to be saving data in what's called a session, which means that once you log in on that computer, it kind of you could say remembers who you are until you log out. And so it's up to the server to kind of maintain what it remembers and what it doesn't. So in this case, the username is something it's going to remember as a part of your session, so that every request you make, it's going to remember that you are the person who logged in a little while ago.
Yep.
And whether you're logged in or not, that code Ben's writing right now is going to determine which of 2 pages you get redirected to. Do you need a redirect bit on that else statement, Ben?
Yeah, it's already had it there, so I don't know why you said that.
I don't know. I must be lagging over here.
Yeah, okay. That's not the right font.
Front of your string. So we're going to have 2 different HTML files here. The benefit of this is that you don't really want people to be able to get to your main app unless they've logged in. So the server is going to make sure that unless you have a session, you're not allowed to get to the loggedin.html file. It's pretty eloquent. If you're not logged in, it's going to automatically redirect you to not logged in. And as soon as you are logged in, it's not going to ask you to log in anymore. That's kind of a Boolean thing, a binary thing. So once your status is set, it's just going to take you to the right place. And if you log out, it'll start taking you back to not logged in and that kind of thing.
Indeed. All right, so I'm recompiling my code now.
By the way, the way we're walking through right now, if you're actually working day to day with a front end and back end team or individual, then it's going to likely be something like this. So the vast majority of it overlaps with what we've already been doing. We just haven't really had to get into weaving this stuff together on any of the projects we've used so far. So hopefully a lot of this looks familiar. They're just a couple of new commands and that sort of thing.
Yup. All right, so I'm running that same gridlw boot run command to reboot my server since I changed some Java code. But the cool part is that when you're doing this on the front end, you're not going to have to reboot this whole time. You just basically run this and ignore it. It's going to run in the background for you.
Just like serve.
Yep. And boom, it started. So I'm going to refresh to go back to the home page. Boom. You need to log in before things. I'll say Ben. Submit redirects me to the home page, which redirects me back to login HTML because I have a session now. And it says, congrats, this is special for you.
So now if you go to just localhost 8080, it's going to take you straight to logged in, right?
Yeah, that's what I did. I'm doing that.
Yeah.
I'll do it again.
Yeah, so you can keep doing that. It's going to remember, these future requests, it's going to remember that you are logged in or not logged in using that session.
Yeah, so. Interesting tidbit of information is it does it with a cookie. This is the session identifier. If I clear this out and refresh the page, well, I go back to the page.
Bye.
Right, I'm not logged in anymore. Why did it do that? That's weird. All right, and then you're like, blah, blah, blah. Resubmit, stuff like that. Yep, so it uses the cookie data to do that. Yep. Cool?
Cool.
All right, so now I have that set up. I'm going to add that to source control, commit it. Committing login stuff, git push. So now I've pushed that. Luke can go ahead and add all of his front-end magic to that as well. So your turn.
Sweet. All right. So I'm. Oh, excuse me. I was zoomed in.
I just like to stare at that. I see. That's good.
Yeah, that's right. Full screen. All right. So I can go into Ben's repository. Remember, I'm not going to have my own copy of this. We're going to be sharing this one right here. I'm just going to clone this URL. Oh, geez. Okay, so here we are. All of Ben's masterwork is in here. And I am going to open folder. That must be from some attempt we didn't try before this. Yeah. All right, so here we go. Lots of cool files. So far, so this doesn't have any front-end stuff in it, but you can just kind of put your stuff in the places we normally put our stuff. So for example, I'm going to create a JS directory inside of here. I'm going to create a SAS directory inside of here. And I'm going to create I'm going to create a login.html. And I'm going to create like a app.html. So historically, again, we've always had just one HTML file. Like Ben just demoed a second ago, we have a not logged in thing that the server should give back and a logged in thing that the server should get back. The majority of that is going to be when you're logged in, this is what you do, at least for most of your else projects. The login is probably going to be something pretty simple, like a basic form. You can probably use a lot of the same styles and potentially some of the same Angular components if you want to have like actual shared UI elements and that sort of thing. But login should be fairly simple. App is where pretty much this is just a renamed version of index.html. Okay, so inside of here, let's say I have an app.js, and you could have all your normal, directory structure that we have. Inside of here, I have a style.sass. And then I'm going to have a gulp file. The gulp file is really where the majority of the difference is going to be for us on the front end. So the directory, if I go down and look at what Ben was just talking about, it's done in source, main, resources, and then static. And here are the two files he created, which look profound. So this is what we want to replace these two things with our app.html and our login.html, or whatever you want to call it. So instead of just outputting to a public directory, which isn't going to be a thing here, I'm instead going to output to this like source, main, resources, static directory. So we're also going to have to, so in addition to outputting there, we're going to have to output to a second place, which is in a directory called build. Remind me what the exact path is here, Ben? Okay, I think he scampered off for a second. But I have that written somewhere. Build, I'm going to copy this over in a second. Build resources main static. So build, resources main, and then inside of there I'll have another static directory. So these are going to be really similar. They're both kind of important though. So this source folder is really where this is the primary output that's going to matter when you actually deploy this code to Heroku. So when it's actually live, where you're going to be demoing from demo day, all this sort of stuff, that needs to be in the source directory. While you're testing locally on your own computer, that's going to be read from the build directory. So it's a bit of a confusing distinction, something we didn't really have to deal with before. But luckily, we can set it up in our gulp file and kind of forget about that at all. And we'll walk through that in just a second. So anyway, you didn't have to manually create all these. Our gulp file is going to do that for us, but I just want you to see kind of what that looks like. So there's some nested directories there, and the same in source. These ones are going to be created by Java or your backend engineer, and then these you may or may not have to create on your own, but probably with gulp. Okay, so I'll collapse those down. This is kind of what my directory structure looks like right now, and I have this gulp file, which is empty at the moment, but I'm going to copy over some stuff. I wrote this out earlier, and we'll step through it. Okay, so the main rule here, and actually this is the first half of the rule. Second half of the rule is source main resources static. Okay, so instead of public, and also instead of just one directory, we're going to be outputting to two directories, and they're going to be not public, but different things. So these are the two directories, and pretty much anywhere we'd normally be outputting to public, we're instead going to be outputting to these two things. So HTML starts in our root directory. This is our login and our app. These are going to instead go to these two directories, so source main resources static, but also build resources main static. CSS is going to do the same thing. JavaScript's going to do the same thing. So all of them are basically just going to move over into the static directory. So I included SAS just to kind of show that nothing really changes on the SAS or Browserify front or any of those other plugins you might be using. None of that really matters. All that's going to change is where you're outputting files to. So the gulp.dest. And I forgot one right here. Source main resources, not components. Okay. Okay, so starting first with HTML, I think most people have these modified, have their Gulp file set up something like this now. So out here, this bottom one, starting with that first, we're going to just be copying our 2 HTML files, so not just index.html. You might need to change this to an asterisk because there's more than one now. So move all HTML files into these 2 directories. And that's going to move, in our case, login.html and app.html. And up here, these templates are going to be basically our Angular component templates. So templates is going to be a little bit of an overloaded word here. Backend has a phrase or a meaning for templates. We have a meaning for templates. So a name's going to kind of show up in a lot of places. But this is the directory we've been using thus far with Angular components. And these are the component templates. So I'm creating, instead of just dropping those into static, I want to drop those into what would normally be a templates directory, but that starts looking kind of crazy because the word template shows up a good bit. So I just called it components. You can call it whatever you want. The important thing is that it's inside of the static directory in both cases. Also note that I have 2 gulp.dest calls here. I have them piped, so I'm starting with these files, and basically I'm just outputting to 2 different places here. So it's going to output to both of these places. And then here, I'm going to do the same with my index and login and app HTML files. So it's pretty much the exact same story down here with CSS and JavaScript. Again, you can just throw SAS in a pipe before you get to the actual destinations, and then we're going to just have 2 different destinations instead of 1. Also, if you don't want to like type this out a bunch of times, or you tend to mess up typing, you can also do something like create some constant variables up here. This is probably what I would do. It'll make it a little easier if you ever, for whatever reason, have to change something. And just replace it with some variables down here. And then, so that would be my build URL. This would be my source URL, which is going to be this. Then what's cool about that is, well, that's going to be components. Okay, so the components part is kind of unique to right here, but this will be copied. It'll be the same for this and this and this. Just those 2 URLs are where everything goes, except for this one right here, which is going to be PS6 here. Build.
Hey, sorry, I hit refresh on the wrong screen.
Okay, so I haven't been talking for like 10 minutes or anything?
No, like
alone?
Maybe like 20 seconds.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, are we still recording?
Yeah, OBS hasn't changed. Yep.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so I think what I was doing during the last 20 seconds, I pulled up these 2 variables, and this is just kind of a cleanup thing, so it's a little easier to read. So I made a build URL and source URL, which was just these strings, and then I just put those inside of my 2 gulp.dest, and I copied that so that I don't have those long paths duplicated everywhere. But up here, this isn't just going strictly into the build directory and into the source directory. It's actually going to go into that thing / components. This is confusing. You don't have to do this part. I just find that it's a little easier to look at. Some of those long strings get a little overwhelming. So here I'm going to be, this is an ES6 string interpolation here. And then down here I'm just basically doing the exact same thing as I would be normally, except I'm outputting twice, and I'm outputting to these 2 kind of weird directories. But what's cool is that now, once I npm install Victor node modules, npm install gulp, stats, I'll be able to run gulp, and it should just copy these files into all the right places. One thing I'm not doing here is creating a watch task. I'm just skipping it for the demo, but that's not really going to be any different because, again, all you're changing is the output locations, not the input locations. Okay, and so now I can just run gulp. And you see how easy it is, that just worked right away. Oh, source. Source. Okay, so using variables that actually exist is a good best practice for writing code that works. And here we go. I look inside a build, look inside a way down here, and I've got all the files, just like I would have in my public directory, but now it's in build, and I can also go look down here. Source, main, resources. Oh, static, refresh. And there's those files. So login or logged in and not logged in aren't actually going to be useful anymore. Instead, my backend person could instead point to login.html and app.html. And then as I make changes, they'll just have the latest version of that code because I'm going to be committing this directory, the source directory, into GitHub or into Git. Build, you don't have to commit. You can kind of leave this out. This is just going to be something you use locally. Source is going to be required for other people to work with your code, though. Okay, and then I think the last thing is, okay, how am I actually going to develop when I'm working like this? Okay, so Ben mentioned this gradlew command. I'm going to be using that. And just like serve, you kind of start it in a tab or start it in a terminal and then don't mess with it. Gradlew, boot run, Ben, right?
Yes, son.
Okay, so I'm going to run gradlew boot run if all goes well. Eventually, this is going to give me a server. Looking good. And you can look down here and see that it started on port 8080. So I'm going to go to localhost 8080. And I get back to Benform. So I guess then I should change this. We should change this so that it, instead of pointing to your not logged in, it points to my not logged in. That would be nice.
It is going to point to your not logged in.
Oh, did you change it? Because mine just goes straight to not logged in.html.
Yep.
I want it to go to login.html. Or I could just change my file names. It doesn't matter. I'll change my file names.
No, wait. That login.html also exists in the build directory, does it not? Isn't your gulp task going to pick that up and put it there?
Yeah, but your server's redirecting to something called logged in and not logged in.
Yeah.
I don't have those files.
That's fine. It's only redirecting because you went to the home page. Just try to hit those files from the web. Like go to /login.html.
You didn't map it, isn't it? Isn't this the only path I can go to?
Nope. Go back to your thing. Go back to your Visual Studio Code.
Yep.
That's actually really weird why that works. That should be only work like not logged in shouldn't even be working because it's running out of the build directory.
Oh, I see what you mean.
It should be there. Wait, that's what? What? Hold on a second. Let me confirm something real quick. All right.
Oh, the pants controller.
You know it. Yeah, that shouldn't be working unless it's in the build directory. For sure. So boot run should have copied that. I mean, obviously it's working. You're not running that from a previous run. No, because you did the... Would not have bound successfully to the port if that were the case. Go to build.
Again? Go to my build?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it copied it in there.
There we go.
I guess when I ran the server, it copied it in there, maybe?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
So if you go to the home page, it's going to redirect you to not logged in at HTML. But if you go to /login at HTML, it'll take you there. Go back to the build directory, the static. Resources, main, static, login at HTML. Did that work? Do you have anything in app.js?
But I'll get it in there. Let's see.
Did you change that out of the build directory? Or you rewritten the script? Yeah. So go back to maybe login.html is like a special thing. Dude, this is like explicitly working. Hold on. Let me just check something real quick.
Yeah. I'm going to test CSS, though I imagine it's the same as JavaScript.
Yeah. Yeah, I just made a pants.html directly in the build directory, build resources main static, and it worked. So I'm guessing there's some. Can you try just renaming that? Login at HTML to like something else.
Sweatshirt.html.
Yes, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted you to name it. Yeah.
Hey.
Okay. So I think login at HTML.
So that was just the wrong word to pick, I guess.
Well, I think it's a key thing in the Spring framework. We just happened upon it because of our luck and skills.
Okay, so
maybe it. No.
Let's call this maybe start.html and then app.html, for example. Then I can come into start HTML. Oh, let me refresh. I'm going to have start HTML. I'm going to have app HTML. And like Ben was saying, now I should be able to go to start.html and app.html. So if I wanted to put this form, all this other HTML stuff, actually, I should just copy Ben's file. Such a good form.
I know, I'm really good at form making.
Yeah, then this would be, oops, wait. Copied in the wrong one. Okay, so here in kind of my main one, I'm going to have this. Okay. I'm going to run gulp.
Oh shit, Luke. Oh no, it works. Sorry, I just had an oh crap moment because I thought that we weren't sharing your screen for the past 15 minutes, but we are.
Okay, that's really good news, actually. Oh yeah, right. Sorry, I'm typing in. It's start. Sorry, that was a lot of jumping around right there. But I can type in start.html. This will let me edit this file, and then if I go to app.html, that will let me edit the second file. But then the way most users are going to use it is not to go to these specific URLs, but just to go to kind of the root directory, and we'll navigate them Here, we'll type in a name, so I'll type in Luke. Submit. And then that's going to send me over eventually to app.html, which is where our actual application is going to be running. And front-end team, this is where we'll actually get into routing. And so once you get to this URL, this is kind of like you being in the app. If you are on, so there's going to be this one transition between those two pages, but once you get here, you can do routing within a page, you can do Ajax requests, you can do all this stuff we've been practicing for a long time. And this is where the vast majority of the work really should go into making your app what it is, other than the login form. Cool. So we'll post this code. Is that it, Ben? I think it is.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so there are a good number of details here. Obviously, we can help you out in person. We'll also post this code so you can take a look. Front-end team, I think the main thing for us is going to be the gulp file. So I'll post this. But also feel free to take a look or look at each other's or whatever. Also, make sure that you move all of your stuff into a shared repository. This will probably mostly be like a copy-paste job, so it's not as hard as it sounds. But someone on the team pick a repository and other people copy their stuff in there, and just make sure to add your team as collaborators so that everyone can actually edit the code.
Word.
Cool. Hopefully beyond that, there won't be a whole lot of hassles when it comes to this stuff. Again, it might seem a little bit complex, but once you get past this little bit, it should be back into pretty familiar territory on both fronts.
Indeed.
Yep.
All right, folks. Thanks for stopping by, and have a good night.
Yep. Bye.
Peace out.